He slid a marriage contract across the back seat of his Mercedes. Pause. His voice barely a whisper. Marry me, for 45 days. Pause. No love. No strings. Outside, the city rain whispered against the glass. She gave a stranger her umbrella, not knowing he was a millionaire CEO. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and tell me where you are watching from. Now, let us go back to our main character. The rain poured over Manhattan, streaking down the tinted windows of a silver Mercedes that glided through the midnight streets. Inside, the hum of the engine filled the silence between two strangers, sitting inches apart but worlds away. Amelia Hayes pressed her hands together on her lap, her knuckles pale. Her cheap umbrella still dripped water onto the spotless leather seat. She should not be here, not beside Ethan Voss, the billionaire CEO whose name appeared on the covers of every financial magazine she could never afford to buy. He looked impossibly calm, one hand on the steering wheel, the other holding a sleek folder embossed with his company's logo. His voice was low, measured, and deliberate. "Miss Hayes," he said, glancing at her, "this may sound unconventional, but I need you to marry me." Her head snapped toward him. "Excuse me?" "Temporarily," he added, his tone steady. 45 days. It is a contractual arrangement." The car slowed at a red light, reflections of neon and rain flashing across his face, sharp jawline, unreadable eyes. Amelia's pulse thudded in her throat. She almost laughed, thinking it was a cruel joke, but his expression never wavered. He turned the folder toward her. Inside were neatly printed pages, clauses numbered and underlined. "You will receive financial compensation, full housing, and security during the term," he continued. "At the end, the marriage will be annulled. No obligations, no publicity, just convenience." She blinked, disbelief flickering with something else, fear, maybe hope. "Why me?" Ethan's gaze softened for the first time. "Because you are the only person I have met in months who has nothing to gain from lying to me." Rain drummed harder on the roof. Amelia stared down at the signature line, her reflection faint on the page. Her rent was 3 months overdue. Her mother's hospital bills kept arriving. Every door she had knocked on this week had closed in her face. "I do not even know you," she whispered. "You will," he said quietly. "And when this ends, you will be free." The light turned green. The car moved again, the city sliding by in streaks of silver and blue. She could hear her heart pounding louder than the rain. 45 days, he repeated. One signature. Amelia exhaled, trembling, and reached for the pen. Outside, thunder rolled across the skyline. Inside the Mercedes, her life shifted course with a single stroke of ink, and neither of them realized this contract, meant to be fake, was about to change everything. The next morning, Amelia woke to the sound of rain still tapping against the window of her small apartment. Her signature on that contract felt unreal, like a dream she should not have had, but the ink was there. Her phone buzzed with a new message. "Pick up at 8. Dress formally, E.V." At precisely 8 o'clock, the same silver Mercedes stopped in front of her building. She hesitated at the door, her thrift store dress hidden beneath a plain coat. When she stepped inside, Ethan Voss was already waiting. Crisp suit, calm expression, holding a paper cup of coffee toward her. "Drink this," he said simply. "You look like you could use it." "Thank you," she murmured, clutching the cup. They drove through the gray Manhattan morning in silence until the car pulled up at the city courthouse. 2 attorneys were waiting under the awning, holding a slim folder and a bouquet of white lilies. Amelia's breath caught when she realized what was happening. "This fast?" she whispered. Ethan's eyes met hers, steady and unreadable. "The sooner we begin, the sooner it ends." Inside, the ceremony was brief, quiet, and heavy with unspoken tension. The justice of the peace read the vows in a soft, tired voice. Ethan responded without hesitation. Amelia's own voice shook when she repeated the words. When the man said, "You may kiss the bride," Ethan only bowed slightly and said, "That will not be necessary." The pen had tied them tighter than any kiss could. Minutes later, they stepped back into the rain. A photographer, hired by Ethan's assistant, snapped 2 discreet pictures for record purposes. The flash cut through the gray morning as he opened the car door for her. "Mrs. Voss," he said quietly. The words felt foreign, unreal. In the car, Amelia studied her reflection in the window. The city blurred past like watercolor. Her stomach turned with a mix of fear and disbelief. Ethan scrolled through his phone, his expression fixed somewhere between exhaustion and calculation. "Where are we going now?" she asked finally. "To my home," he replied. "It is part of the contract. Public appearances will require us to live together. At least for the next 45 days. Her fingers tightened around the coffee cup. "You mean your penthouse?" He gave a faint smile. "Yes, but do not worry. There are 2 bedrooms. You will have privacy." The Mercedes ascended the steep ramp of an underground garage. When the elevator doors opened, Amelia stepped into a world that did not seem real. Marble floors, glass walls, the skyline stretching endlessly beyond the rain. Everything gleamed, cold and perfect. Ethan gestured toward a room down the hall. "That will be yours. My staff will bring your things this afternoon." She turned toward him, trying to read the man who now, by law, was her husband. "Why are you really doing this?" He paused, hands in his pockets. "There are investors who believe a married CEO is more stable. It protects the company during the merger. Nothing more." She nodded slowly, though the ache in her chest deepened. "And me? You get a clean slate," he said softly. "A new beginning, for 45 days. He walked away, his footsteps echoing across the marble floor, leaving her alone with the city lights and the sound of rain still whispering against the glass. Amelia exhaled, her hand brushing the simple gold band on her finger. In that moment, she realized something she could not explain. The contract might have been about convenience, but her heart was already caught between fear and curiosity. Outside, lightning flashed across the Manhattan skyline, illuminating 2 shadows standing in the same penthouse, strangers bound by paper, about to learn what promises truly cost. For the first few days, Amelia moved through the penthouse like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. The place felt too silent, too immaculate, the kind of space where even her footsteps sounded out of place. Ethan's staff came and went quietly, their politeness precise, almost mechanical. Every morning at 7, a driver waited for him in the private garage. Every evening, he returned at exactly 9, still in the same tailored suit, smelling faintly of rain and cedar. Their interactions were brief. "Dinner is ready. Thank you. I will not be late tonight. Good night, Mr. Voss." He never corrected her when she called him that. One evening, she found herself standing at the window, staring out at the endless lights of Manhattan. The rain had finally stopped, and the city shimmered beneath the wet sky. Ethan entered the living room, jacket off, tie loosened. For the first time, he looked almost human. "You can sit," he said quietly, noticing how she straightened whenever he appeared. "You do not have to be formal all the time. I just do not want to make you uncomfortable," she replied. He gave a faint, humorless smile. "Trust me, comfort is a luxury I gave up a long time ago." There was a silence between them, awkward, but not unpleasant. She noticed the way his eyes lingered on the coffee table, where her sketchbook lay open. Pencils scattered beside it, half-finished drawings of the city skyline. "You draw," he said. "It helps me think," she answered, closing the book quickly. "I will move it if it bothers you." "Leave it," Ethan said. "This place could use something real." That night, she could not sleep. The sound of the city pulsed through the glass walls. Her thoughts tangled with questions she could not ask about him, about what had made a man like Ethan Voss hide behind contracts instead of people. The next morning, a woman in a sleek black suit arrived at the penthouse. Her name was Dana Marks, Ethan's head of public relations. She shook Amelia's hand with professional stiffness and began rehearsing what she called the narrative. "You 2 met through a mutual friend at a charity event," Dana explained. "It was a whirlwind romance. The press will ask about the timing, so stay consistent. No personal interviews without approval. And please, Mrs. Voss, wear something from the designer list for the gala next week." Amelia nodded, her stomach tightening. "A gala? It will be your first appearance as Ethan's wife. Think of it as proof." When Dana left, Amelia turned to Ethan, who had been silent through the briefing. "You really have thought of everything, haven't you?" "I have to," he said flatly. "One wrong headline can destroy millions in negotiations." "Then why me?" she asked softly. "Why not someone trained for this? Someone who belongs in your world?" Ethan looked at her for a long time before answering. "Because everyone in my world has a price. I needed someone who does not." She had no response. That evening, while he worked in his glass-walled office, Amelia explored the penthouse in quiet curiosity. She found a study lined with books, mostly biographies and law journals, but one photograph drew her in. It was framed in silver, a young woman smiling beside Ethan on a boat, sunlight in her hair. Amelia traced the edge of the frame, then quickly stepped back when she heard his footsteps behind her. "That was my wife," he said, his voice low. "She died 3 years ago." "I am sorry," Amelia whispered. He nodded once, distant, almost mechanical. "Do not be. People leave. Contracts do not." For the first time, she understood the coldness that surrounded him. It was not pride, it was protection. That night, as she returned to her room, Amelia realized that her role in his life was never about love or companionship. She was a shield, a placeholder for stability in a world built on appearances. Yet when she looked at her reflection in the mirror, she felt something new, a spark of empathy, maybe even defiance, because somewhere behind that armor of wealth and logic, Ethan Voss was still human. And for reasons she could not yet name, she wanted to see that part of him again. The week of the gala arrived faster than Amelia expected. The penthouse buzzed with preparation stylists, arriving with racks of evening gowns, jewelers presenting velvet boxes, assistants confirming schedules. It all felt unreal, like she was stepping into someone else's story. When she looked at her reflection, the girl staring back wore a sapphire silk dress, hair swept up, a stranger with confidence she did not feel. Ethan stood behind her, adjusting his cufflinks in the mirror. "You look perfect," he said simply. "I look like someone pretending," she replied quietly. "That is the point," he said, offering his arm. "Let us go convince the world." The gala was held in the glass atrium of the Voss Tower. Crystal chandeliers glittered above the crowd of shareholders, journalists, and politicians. The hum of conversation filled the air, rich with laughter and ambition. As they stepped onto the red carpet, flashes burst like lightning. "Mr. Voss! Mrs. Voss! Over here!" photographers called. Ethan's hand tightened slightly on her waist. He smiled, practiced and composed, while Amelia tried not to flinch under the blinding lights. Inside, they mingled among guests who looked at her with polite curiosity, then quiet judgment. She caught fragments of whispers. "She is younger than expected. Where did he find her?" "Temporary, obviously." Ethan leaned closer, his voice low. "Ignore them. You are doing fine." But her heart was pounding. At the buffet, a tall woman approached a brunette in a sequined gown, sharp smile cutting through the noise. "Ethan," she purred, "you did not tell me you got married." Ethan's expression flickered for just a second before he composed himself. "Vivian," he said. "This is my wife, Amelia." The woman's eyes swept over Amelia like a blade. "Wife? How interesting. The last time I saw you, you said marriage was a distraction." Amelia forced a smile. Maybe he changed his mind. Vivian's gaze narrowed. Or maybe it is just another business strategy. She brushed past them, leaving a trail of perfume and tension in her wake. Ethan exhaled slowly. "She is an old associate. Do not take her words seriously." "I am not sure I can take any of this seriously," Amelia said under her breath. He looked at her, his jaw tightening, but said nothing. Later that evening, as speeches began, Amelia found herself alone at the balcony overlooking the city. The wind carried the faint sound of violins from inside. She gripped the railing, her heart still racing. Then she heard his voice behind her. "I owe you an apology," Ethan said quietly. "Tonight was not easy. I should have prepared you better." She turned to face him. "You do not have to apologize. It is not real, remember?" "Maybe it is not," he said. "But that, does not mean you do not feel the weight of it. Their eyes met in the dim glow of the skyline. For the first time, she saw something unguarded in him, a crack in the armor. He stepped closer, the sound of rain starting again beyond the glass. When my wife died, people lined up to offer sympathy, but none of it was real. They just wanted to know when I would move on. So I stopped letting anyone close. Amelia's voice softened. And now you are pretending to be close again. With me. Yes, he admitted. Because you were never part of that world. You make it easier to breathe in it. A silence stretched between them. She could feel the city humming beneath their feet, the lights shimmering on wet glass. I do not know what this is, she whispered. But I am tired of pretending I feel nothing. He looked at her for a long moment, then reached into his jacket pocket. A single folded page, their contract. Then let us change the rules, he said. Amelia's breath caught. What rules? The ones that said we could not care, he said softly. Before she could answer, applause erupted from inside, breaking the spell. Ethan stepped back, the mask returning to his face. We should go, he said. As they walked back into the golden light of the gala, Amelia realized the truth she was not ready to admit aloud. Somewhere between signatures and silence, the contract had begun to mean something neither of them had planned. The days following the gala felt different. Something unspoken lingered between Amelia and Ethan, fragile but undeniable. The air inside the penthouse had changed. The silence was no longer cold, it was charged, filled with things neither of them dared to say. Every morning, Amelia woke earlier than usual, making coffee in the kitchen before the staff arrived. Sometimes Ethan joined her, still in his white shirt, sleeves rolled up, the scent of his cologne mixing with roasted beans. Their conversations were brief, but softer now. He asked about her sketches. She asked about his meetings. For two people bound by paper, they had begun to sound almost married. One night, she returned from a solo walk through Central Park, rain dampening her hair. When she stepped inside, Ethan was sitting at the piano in the corner of the living room. She had never seen him touch it before. His fingers moved slowly, hesitant, tracing a melody that sounded like remembering. I did not know you played, she said quietly. He looked up, surprised. I used to. My wife loved this piece. Amelia hesitated, then approached, the sound of the city faint through the glass walls. You stopped after she passed? He nodded. For a long time, the music felt like guilt. She leaned against the piano, eyes soft. And now? Now it feels like breathing again, he said. Maybe because someone finally listens without judgment. They did not speak for a while. The melody filled the room, gentle and uncertain. Then Ethan turned to her. Do you ever regret signing that contract? She smiled faintly. Every day. And yet, I am still here. He studied her for a moment. You could leave tomorrow if you wanted to. I could, she said. But I do not want to. Something in him shifted. The walls he had built around himself began to crumble. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his voice barely a whisper. You are making this harder than it was supposed to be. Good, she said softly. Maybe it was supposed to be hard. The sound of rain returned outside, tapping against the windows like a reminder of how it all began. Ethan exhaled, standing, as if distance might help him regain control. You should rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. What happens tomorrow? She asked. Board meeting, he replied. It could decide everything: the merger, the company's future. The next morning, the world of luxury turned hostile. News had leaked online rumors that Ethan's marriage was a staged ploy to boost investor confidence. Headlines screamed, CEO's fake wife scandal. Cameras surrounded the building. Amelia saw the reports flash across the television in disbelief. Her picture, her name, the word fake, repeated again and again. Ethan arrived home hours later, his face grim, his tie loosened, exhaustion etched in every line. It was Vivian, he said, voice low. She leaked it to the press. Amelia felt her chest tighten. So it is over, he shook his head. Not yet. I can fix this. How? She asked. By pretending harder? He looked at her, pain in his eyes. by telling the truth. She wanted to believe him, but fear drowned the hope. And what truth is that, Ethan? That we never meant to fall for each other? He stepped closer, his voice steady but full of something raw. That maybe we did. She stared at him, searching his face for lies, but found none. For the first time, she saw not the billionaire, not the strategist, but the man beneath it all, the one who was terrified of losing something real. Outside, the city thundered with noise and rain, but inside, the world seemed to hold its breath. And as the night closed in around them, Amelia understood that the next day would not just test the contract. It would test their hearts. If this fake marriage universe pulls you in, subscribe now so you never miss the next chapter. The next morning arrived with chaos. Reporters crowded the entrance of Voss Tower, their cameras flashing like a storm of artificial lightning. Amelia stood by the penthouse window, staring down at the swarm below. Her phone buzzed non-stop, unknown numbers. Journalists, even old co-workers she had not spoken to in years. Every notification carried the same poison. Fake wife, contract marriage, CEO scandal. Ethan entered the room, already dressed in a dark suit, his expression cold but controlled. "Do not read any of it," he said. "I do not have to," she replied quietly. "It is everywhere." He paused, taking a slow breath. "The board meeting is in 2 hours. They will expect a statement. If I stay silent, the merger collapses. If I tell the truth, we both burn." Amelia turned toward him. "Then what are you going to do?" He hesitated. "I will do what I should have done from the beginning. Protect you." 2 hours later, the boardroom buzzed with tension. 12 executives sat in a gleaming glass chamber overlooking the skyline. At the head of the table, Ethan faced his board with the composure of a man built for war. Cameras from the internal press unit streamed the session live to shareholders. "Mr. Voss," one of the older members began, "the allegations online, are they true?" Ethan's eyes were steady. "Partially." Murmurs spread through the room. He continued, voice unwavering. "Yes, our marriage began as a contract. It was a mistake made out of desperation to stabilize a merger. But somewhere in the process, the line between obligation and truth disappeared." He turned to the camera, to the thousands watching across the city. "If you want to blame someone, blame me. Amelia Hayes is not a fraud. She is the only honest part of my life." In the penthouse, Amelia watched the broadcast live. Her breath caught as he spoke, her name not as a shield or a figure in his strategy, but as someone real. When the meeting ended, reporters surged toward him in the lobby. Ethan ignored the questions and stepped straight into the rain. By the time he reached the car, the news had already changed tone. "CEO admits to love in contract scandal." The words felt surreal. That evening, the penthouse door opened, and Ethan walked in, soaked to the bone. Amelia rushed to meet him, but he only smiled faintly. "It is done," he said. "I told them everything." She stared at him. "You could lose everything." He shrugged lightly. "Then maybe it was never mine to begin with." For a long moment, they stood there, two people who had built their world on rules, now standing in the wreckage of honesty. Amelia reached up, brushing the rain from his cheek. "You did not have to do that for me." "Yes, I did," he said, "because for the first time, it was not about the company. It was about you." The silence that followed felt heavy, but peaceful. For once, the city outside did not matter. Later that night, Amelia found him sitting by the piano again. The lights were low, the melody soft and broken. She sat beside him without speaking. He turned slightly. "I used to think control was everything. But love, it is chaos. It ruins the plan. And somehow, it is the only thing that feels right." Amelia smiled, her hand resting over his on the keys. "Then let us not plan anything for a while." He looked at her, eyes tired but alive. "I can live with that." Outside, the rain began again, gentle this time, as if washing away the lies that had held them hostage. For the first time since signing that contract, Amelia felt free not because the deal was over, but because the truth had finally taken its place. The next few days unfolded in silence, the kind that feels heavier than words. The scandal had begun to fade. replaced by new headlines, new distractions. But for Ethan and Amelia, the quiet was its own storm. They stayed in the penthouse, avoiding the public eye. The city kept spinning outside, indifferent to the wreckage they had survived. Each morning, Amelia found Ethan at his desk, reviewing documents that no longer seemed to matter. The merger had been postponed indefinitely. Investors were cautious, but not cruel. His empire still stood, but something inside him had changed. One evening, she brought him coffee and found him staring out the window. "You could start over," she said gently. "Rebuild everything." He turned toward her, his expression softer than she had ever seen. "Maybe I will, but not like before." He stepped closer. "Do you know what the board asked me after the meeting?" She shook her head. "They asked if I still planned to keep the contract alive. I told them I had already burned it." Amelia blinked. "You did what?" He smiled faintly. "I burned it. Every copy. It was never about legal terms anymore. It was about trust." Her breath caught. "So, what happens now?" "Now," Ethan said quietly, "we find out who we are without pretending." For the first time in weeks, she laughed. It was small, but real. "That sounds terrifying." He reached for her hand. "It should be." They stood there as the lights of Manhattan glittered beneath them, two people who had built something by accident and found themselves unwilling to let it go. The rain that had haunted their story finally cleared, revealing a pale dawn above the skyline. Later, Amelia returned to her sketchbook, filling the pages with images she could not express in words. Two figures beneath an umbrella, the city reflecting in puddles, a single gold ring resting on a piano key. She titled the drawing "The Contract That Became Real." When Ethan saw it, he did not speak. He simply kissed her forehead and whispered, 45 days were never meant to last forever, but maybe forever begins here." And for the first time, Amelia believed him. If this fake marriage universe pulls you in, subscribe now so you never miss the next chapter. Weeks passed, and the quiet stability between them began to feel like peace. Ethan no longer woke before dawn to chase board meetings. Instead, he brewed coffee beside Amelia, sometimes even burning the toast and pretending it was intentional. The penthouse, once a fortress of silence, now carried the soft rhythm of laughter, piano notes, and the hum of ordinary life. One morning, Amelia stood on the balcony, sunlight touching her hair, a sketchbook open in her hands. Ethan approached with 2 cups of coffee. "What are you drawing?" he asked. She smiled without looking up. "A new beginning." He glanced at the page, a sketch of the city skyline under clear skies. "No rain this time," he said softly. "Not today," she replied. Their peace, however, did not go unnoticed. The media that had once hunted them now wanted an exclusive interview, the couple who survived the contract. Ethan refused every offer, but one letter caught his attention. It came from a charity foundation, inviting Amelia to present her artwork for a fundraiser supporting women who had lost their jobs during the merger crisis. "You should do it," Ethan told her. "It is your story, too." Amelia hesitated. "People will see me again. They will remember the scandal." "Then show them what came after it," he said. A week later, she stood in the grand hall of the foundation event. Her drawings hung along the walls, each one telling a piece of their story, from the rain-soaked car to the rooftop dawn. Guests admired the art, unaware that the woman in the simple black dress was the artist herself. When her name was announced, she froze for a moment. Then Ethan appeared beside her, taking her hand. "You have already faced worse," he whispered. She stepped onto the stage, her voice trembling but steady. "Every line in these drawings began with fear," she said. "But fear is not the opposite of love. Sometimes it is how love begins." The audience erupted in applause. Ethan watched her with quiet pride, knowing she had finally found her own voice. After the event, as the night air cooled around them, he turned to her with a soft smile. "You once said you regretted signing that contract," he said. "Do you still?" She shook her head. "Not anymore, because it led me here." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside lay a bot of the phase, ring not the simple gold band from the contract, but something new. Then maybe it is time we write a new agreement, he said. Amelia's breath caught. What kind? The real one, Ethan said. No signatures, just promises. The rooftop of Voss Tower glowed beneath strings of soft golden lights. The city stretched endlessly around them, skyscrapers glittering like stars fallen to earth. A gentle breeze carried the scent of jasmine and rain, the same scent that had followed them since the night everything began. Amelia stood by the edge of the terrace, the skyline reflecting in her eyes. Ethan approached quietly, holding the small velvet box in his hand. You never answered me that night, he said, his voice low. She turned to him, smiling. I thought the answer was obvious. He opened the box, the diamond inside catching the city lights. Then say it anyway, he whispered. Yes, she said simply. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, his hand trembling slightly. For a man who once built empires, this was the first thing he had ever done that truly terrified him. No contracts this time, he said. Just you and me. No conditions, she replied. No time limits. He smiled, and the world seemed to slow. The city noise faded, replaced by the faint hum of life below them, the heartbeat of New York, the same rhythm that had carried them through storms, lies, and redemption. A few friends and colleagues had gathered quietly near the glass railing. The justice of the peace read the vows, but the words hardly mattered. Ethan and Amelia had already lived them. When the ceremony ended, applause filled the night. Amelia leaned into him, whispering, You know, for a fake marriage, this one feels very real. He laughed softly, his forehead resting against hers. It was never fake to me, he said. It just took me too long to admit it. Rain began to fall, light, warm, forgiving. He pulled her, close, both of them laughing as the drops sparkled in the lights above. Around them, the city pulsed like a promise renewed. Later that evening, they danced barefoot on the wet rooftop, her dress trailing against the shimmering surface. Each step was imperfect, human, and utterly theirs. Amelia looked up at him. What happens now? Ethan brushed his thumb against her cheek. Now, he said, we stop surviving and start living. And as the rain softened into mist, the world around them blurred into a single truth: love had never been about perfection. It had always been about choosing each other, again and again, even when everything else fell apart. The skyline glowed behind them, a perfect ending to the story that began with a contract and ended with a promise. If you want more untold billionaire love, subscribe and choose your next chapter on screen.